From the Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Aishah Ashraf. Our top story tonight: churches in the West Bank have announced the cancellation of annual Christmas celebrations, citing Israel's destructive war on Gaza. The festivities will be limited to church services dedicated to prayers for the people of Gaza, martyrs, the wounded, and those grieving. A statement issued by churches and the municipality of Ramallah expressed deep sorrow and frustration at the killing of people in the West Bank and Gaza. It noted that Palestinians stand isolated against occupation tanks and warplanes. The statement said in Palestine, the land of Christ, people welcome the holidays with increased pain and suffering. A pro-Palestine student group and the ACLU have filed a lawsuit against the University of Florida system and Governor Ron Desantis. It was initiated by the University of Florida Students for Justice and Palestine chapter. The lawsuit alleges a violation of free speech rights after the university attempted to deactivate the group. University Chancellor Raymond Rodriguez, in consultation with Desantis, issued an order to strip the group of its official recognition. The lawsuit argues this action unfairly targets the local chapter of the SJP and constitutes a violation of the First Amendment rights. The ACLU and the Florida chapter say that independent political advocacy, regardless of its viewpoint, is protected by the First Amendment. Desantis has previously characterized SJP members as part of the militant group Hamas, falsely linking them to terrorism. The lawsuit aims to send a message against censorship in educational institutions. The U.S. State Department expressed concern over hospitals in Gaza being targeted from the air. Over 15,000 Palestinians have died since Israel began its war on Gaza last month, which has destroyed mosques, churches, schools, hospitals, and UN buildings. Spokesman Matthew Miller emphasized the need to protect hospitals and minimize civilian casualties. While acknowledging Israel's right to conduct limited military operations, Miller urged it to do so in a way that safeguards hospitals and patients. The statement follows a second raid on Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City within 24 hours. The U.S. also stressed the importance of Israel ensuring civilian safety, indicating ongoing dialogue with Israel on this matter. The World Food Programme is warning that Gaza is facing the imminent threat of starvation due to winter's arrival and dire living conditions. WFP spokesperson Abir Etfa reports rising cases of dehydration and malnutrition. She notes that there is a severe food shortage with only 10% of necessities available since the conflict began. UN experts have previously warned of a grave risk of genocide due to the Israeli blockade cutting off vital supplies to Gaza. Roughly 2.2 million in Gaza, nearly the entire population, now require food assistance. The collapse of the food supply chain is deemed catastrophic. UNRWA Communications Director Juliette Duma likened Gaza to an earthquake-stricken area. She blames the catastrophe on man-made causes and emphasized the urgency of aid delivery. A contentious part of U.S. law that allows warrantless surveillance of foreign nationals abroad is set to expire soon, prompting debate in Congress. Privacy advocates demand reform while intelligence agencies urge its renewal for national security purposes. Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, permits electronic surveillance of foreign nationals abroad and of foreign intelligence targets within the U.S. Critics argue this infringes on individual privacy as it often captures American citizens' communications incidentally. Concerns also arise as domestic law enforcement, like the FBI, can access FISA data without warrants. In recent times, FISA has been used to target those involved in former President Donald Trump's campaign and Black Lives Matter leaders. Appearing before the House Committee on Homeland Security Wednesday, FBI Director Christopher Wray argued that allowing Section 702 to expire or restricting its use would make the country less safe. Palestinian telecom firm announces complete shutdown of services in Gaza. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Palestinian Telecommunication Group has announced a complete shutdown of communications and internet services in Gaza due to the depletion of fuel. Uridu Palestine, another telecom company operating in the Gaza Strip, also announced suspension of services in the south and some northern areas. Earlier this month, Palestinian Communications and Information Technology Minister Yitzhak Sidr appealed to Egypt to activate roaming services and operate telecommunication stations near the Gaza border. Yemen's Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi has issued a warning that Israeli ships in the Red Sea and the Bab al-Mandeb Strait are at risk of attack. The Houthi group recently carried out missile and drone strikes against Israel. Since 2015, Houthi rebels have become a formidable military force in the Arabian Peninsula, controlling northern Yemen and its Red Sea coastline. The Yemen conflict remains in a fragile stalemate with a lapsed UN-brokered truce in October. The Houthi threat adds a new dimension to ongoing tensions in the region. Afghanistan has criticized Western governments and international organizations for their duplicitous stance on Israeli actions in Gaza. Afghan Foreign Ministry spokesperson Abdul Qahar Balkhi stressed his position would reinforce the perception that human rights is a war tactic used for political purposes. He highlighted the continuous brutalization of Gaza by Israeli forces for more than 40 days, emphasizing the violation of rules of war. Gaza's media office reports extensive damage to health centers, ambulances, and hospitals due to Israeli attacks. Afghanistan's Taliban administration denounced Israeli actions as war crimes, urging the UN and human rights bodies to take a clear and just stand against what it calls brutalities. It also called upon Arab and Islamic nations to support oppressed Muslims in Gaza. Qatari mediators are in negotiations to broker a deal between Hamas and Israel. The proposed agreement includes the release of about 50 civilian Israeli prisoners from Gaza in exchange for a 3-day ceasefire. This initiative, coordinated with the US, also entails Israel releasing Palestinian women and children from its jails and increasing the humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza. Hamas has accepted the broad outlines of the deal, while Israel, which recently launched military operations in Gaza, is still negotiating the specifics. The talks represent a significant shift, focusing on the release of 50 civilian hostages in exchange for a temporary truce. Qatar, known for its mediation efforts, is facilitating negotiations. A comprehensive release of all hostages is not currently on the table. Israeli officials have yet to respond officially. Israeli troops have encircled the Ibn Sina hospital complex in the occupied West Bank near the Jenin refugee camp, which is not ruled by Hamas. The presence of numerous Israeli armored vehicles and bulldozers have raised concerns as they demanded medical staff to evacuate the hospital. While some staff outside complied, those inside refused to leave. Jenin is a region where frequent clashes have occurred with Israeli forces, resulting in several deaths even before October 7th. Israeli raids have caused significant infrastructure damage, including to sewers, cables, roads, and private Palestinian property. In the West Bank, the Israeli army has killed 186 Palestinians, including 51 children, since October 7th. So far, 430 Palestinians have died in the West Bank in 2023. European banks, including Deutsche Bank, Crédit Agricole, and Intesa Sanpaolo, have come under scrutiny for investing more than $760 million in 2 companies contributing to violence in South Sudan. The United Nations has raised concerns about potential complicity in war crimes. The banks also have provided more than $4 billion in loans and underwriting services to these companies over 7 years. South Sudan has endured decades of violence, with ongoing conflict since 2013, resulting in mass atrocities. Despite peace agreements in 2015 and 2018, violence against civilians in South Sudan persists. Despite warnings, European banks and investors have continued to fund and lend to companies involved in the country's oil sector. In 2018, the U.S. placed these companies on its entities list for contributing to South Sudan's crisis. Other investors have divested from smaller players linked to violence in South Sudan. However, EU banks persist in supporting Petronas and CNPC, who jointly own a majority of the oil sector. In a landmark case, 22-year-old white nationalist Nathaniel Veltman has been convicted of the murder of a Muslim family in Ontario, Canada. On June 6, 2021, Veltman intentionally drove his truck into 5 members of the Assails family as they were out for a walk in London, Ontario. Veltman faced charges of 4 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He pleaded not guilty, but a jury has found him guilty on all counts. It is the first time Canada's terrorism law has been applied in a first-degree murder trial before a jury. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours at Windsor's Superior Courthouse before reaching its verdict. Jurors did not specify whether Veltman's actions were motivated by terrorism. The attack claimed the lives of 3 generations of the Afzal family, including 46-year-old Salman Afzal, his 44-year-old wife Madiha Salman, their 15-year-old daughter Yumna, and 74-year-old grandmother Talat Afzal. Their 9-year-old son sustained severe injuries but survived the attack. Somalia is facing its worst climate change-related floods in a century, causing widespread devastation. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that 1.24 million people have been affected, with more than 450,000 displaced since early October. Heavy rains are expected to continue in various regions until Tuesday, increasing the risk of disease outbreaks, particularly cholera. The Bay region in southwest state is the hardest hit, with 37% of the affected population, followed by Gedo with 23% and Madag with 17%. The Somali National Disaster Management Agency warns that floods caused by the El Niño phenomenon would persist as water levels in rivers rise due to torrential rains. Somalia has declared a national humanitarian emergency to address the crisis. Southern Somalia is preparing for more flooding as persistent showers have damaged infrastructure and farmlands. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.